I read a news article last week about a street guy, lives on the streets. And I don't know, I think it was out east somewhere, I can't recollect the city, but he found a bag that had tens of thousands of dollars in it, just sitting somewhere on a boulevard or in a park. And you know what he did? Everything that you would do. He brought it to the police and said, I found this bag. Wouldn't you do that? That was really quite striking because there was no name on it and no one was claiming it in his presence, this very poor person. It's a very contrast to today's gospel wherein someone is indeed very selfish and squandering what has been entrusted to him and probably for selfish gain. So this man is the steward of property and the owner hears, hey, he's not doing good for me, okay? This guy's messing up. And later on, Jesus talks about dishonest wealth, so it seems like maybe he's kind of skimming something, okay? And so the master says, I think our contract is coming to its conclusion, and we're going to move on, right? So what does he do? Well, he says, I'm going to make a lot of friends. Make a lot of friends because I'm going to need a place to stay. And the other guy says, you know what? You're kind of wise. You're kind of shrewd for doing that. Okay? Very surprising. Very surprising. But what's the point for us? Well, I think one point for us is this. We need to have foresight. We need to have foresight. To be able to look down the road. What's coming? What are the ramifications of certain choices? Okay? A very ugly scenario, which I think all of you probably heard about, but there's a gentleman from Cleveland who had 3 girls that he kept in his house, okay? He kidnapped them and had them for 11 years. You know that story? Well, he just died and in prison, and they think he took his own life. That's the word out there. But he said, one of his last words in interview was, he said, people should study addiction. People should study addiction. He says, because my problem started, he said, with pornography. And I became so addicted, I could no longer discern what was good and bad. I couldn't act in a way that was right. And so he goes on to say, in a sense, he says, I'm a good person, he said. Can you believe that? I'm really a good person, he said. Now that was quoted in an article in a paper just this weekend. So the ramifications of his choice and where it ended up, how that ended up, not good. Do we have the foresight when we look forward to exams? I really need to study a certain amount. In the seminary, we have this 40-hour rule. Anyone heard me say that before? 40-hour rule? You're new here. You're new, so I'm going to tell you the new ones. Well, I say to the young men in the seminary, people out there are helping to sponsor you. You get scholarships and so on, and they work at least 40 hours, and you got to put in your 40 hours. And your class is 16 credits. It should be 16 hours, but technically it's actually 13 and a half. If you really look at the schedule, okay, it's 13 and a half hours. And so I say, okay, now you should study 26 and a half hours because that makes 40. That's good foresight. You don't even have to pay me. I give you that for free, okay? Good foresight. I want to do well in my studies. I'm going to put in this time, okay? Someone here wants to go to medical school. I was very impressed by this person. They went through all this checklist of all the things they have to do, all the letters of recommendation that they have, all the tests that they need to take, and the practice tests that they can do to get ready, etc., etc., very long list. A lot of foresight to know what must be done by a certain time to get into medical school. Well, what about virtue? What about virtue? One of the things about virtue is simply avoiding the near occasion of sin. Did you ever go to confession and say, I promise to avoid the near occasion of sin? Did you do that? Yeah? Did you ever think about what you're saying? Yeah? I promise to do all in my power to avoid the near occasion of sin, to sin no more. Okay? And sometimes that requires looking ahead, saying, I'm not going to avoid that place. Now, were you at the football game yesterday? Kind of sad, wasn't it? Kind of difficult. I don't see too many football players here tonight, so I'm feeling bad for them. There may be a couple. We didn't play the best game, and St. John's played a pretty good game. But hopefully we'll get to play them again in the playoffs, right? Look forward to that. Well, I saw one guy being carried out of the stands yesterday. No shirt on. So drunk, he was unconscious. I saw it. Okay? And I was standing next to the people up on the balcony by Morrison. I think, big donors. And they're all kind of laughing. And they're all kind of saying, look at that, look at that. And I just thought, wow, I kind of feel bad. I can't really judge. I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to tell you about all my history. I wasn't carried out like that, okay, but I did have to go to confession several occasions in my life. In any case, I just think what a wonderful moment it would be to exemplify virtue with so many people watching. One of my seminarians said of the football team afterwards, they showed great sportsmanship in greeting the Johnny players. They showed great sportsmanship in greeting the players. And I was proud of that. All right, so today we're praying for prudence, foresight. How do we prepare for what can be down the road? Jesus says, if you are faithful in small matters, you'll be faithful in big. Okay? Whether it's the test, whether it's a life of virtue, whatever it is, to consider the future and to be wise.